And then yeah, SE is just for the square end and vice versa. And then when you're done switching them out, just throw it back in this bag and then back in the box on top of the shelf. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put this ball end 1/4 inch bit in, because that's the first bit we need, and that's what the computer's prompting us to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit view so that it moves the bed out of the way of the bit so that I can easily get the piece on there. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up, grab my 2 wrenches, gonna slide them on here. There we go. So that fell out. This is the detection pin. Just throw that back in the basket. That doesn't need to go in the bag because it gets used so much. And then again, unscrew the collet. So there's that. That's the collet for the detection pin. Throw that in the basket as well. You can actually slide it on top of the detection pin if you want. That way people know that that's what it's for. So again, since they're tight fits, you can just kind of slide it on there and then just leave it on there. And now I'll grab the collet that goes with the 1/4 inch ball end. And there's also additional collets in the box that the other bits are stored in, because for the smaller bits, the diameter of the bit itself is actually smaller, and so you'll need a thinner collet in order to use it. And so you just need to go through there and find the right size collet to fit your actual bit. So first I'll screw the collet in. And then I'll take the bit, slide it up into it, and the way you know how far to slide it in, and I need to actually kind of see the screen. Can you see the line right here where my finger's pointing? Here, zoom in a little further and I'll just move back and forth until it focuses. So there's a line. Oh, you can almost see it there. There's a line on there. It's a lot easier to see with your own eyes. There it is. So there's a line right there between the darker end and the lighter end of the bit. That line is exactly where you need to put the bit up into the collet. So that line right here is going to line up right with the end of the collet. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this and slide this in. There we go. And then it's going to slide out if I don't hang on to it. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that in place and get my 2 wrenches put on. Again, this can be a little bit tricky. And then you just want to tighten it by pushing them together. And there we go. Alright, so now that we have that in place, we want to go ahead and recenter the height of the drill bit so it knows exactly how deep the drill bit is. And we actually do that with V-panel. And if you were to, so what I can show you is, almost missed the chair. I'm going to go ahead and close the window so that we don't move it without the window closed, because then it would soft lock and then you gotta, not soft lock, that's a, whatever. But anyways, it would lock and then you have to go and kind of restart the machine. So if I go ahead and click next, you're going to see right here, it says set the Y and Z origin points at the center of rotation and the X-axis origin point at the right side of the workpiece. Now we already did this because I showed you while you were here, but if you do it at this point, where if you do it at this point in the steps, it's going to center the Y and Z axis at the length of the drill bit. And so we actually have to redo that because of the length of the drill bit. And so I just did it earlier so you could see it. And so if we go back to V-panel, V-panel, so probably keep that open. I'm going to come back down here, YZ origin at the center of rotation, click apply, click continue. It's going to move and it's going to figure out exactly how tall the drill bit is, exactly where the tip of it is at, so that it can cut exactly the depth it needs to when it runs the machine. Alright, so once it's moved back in position, it'll pop up on the screen that it's done. You just click OK. If you need to recenter your X origin, you can do that. You can check and see that it's at the right X origin because you can do a move to X origin. So if I hit move, it's going to move the actual head over there. And so you can see it lined up exactly with the right edge of our piece, so we know the X origin is still in the right spot. And so I can go ahead and close out vPanel now because we don't need it anymore. And so now that we followed the step of setting the Y and Z axis at the center of rotation and the X origin at the right side of the workpiece, I can click next. And now it just says start cutting. So if I were to go ahead and hit next, it's going to start cutting. I don't think there's really much else to tell you. Before I hit go, I'm going to say a couple things so that it's not noisy. But halfway through the cutting, it's going to prompt you on, it's going to stop. It's going to actually physically stop the machine, and it's going to prompt you to switch out the drill bits. And so literally all you have to do is what we just did, where you're switching out the bits. And then once you have it switched out, you're going to have to run the centering process again, so that the Y and Z axis are centered at the center of rotation. It's going to check the height again. The X origin should still be at the same X origin, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, so once you click start here, it's going to run. It'll do the roughing process. The roughing process will finish. It will stop and prompt you to switch out the drill bits. Switch it out with the one it tells you to. In this case, it will prompt us for the 1/8" drill bit. Once you switch it out, open up vPanel and center the Y and Z axis at the center of rotation. Once you've centered that, you can go ahead and hit resume because it will be ready to go ahead and do the finishing process. And once that's done, you should be good to go. You can go ahead and pull the piece out, just doing the reverse order of what we did earlier to put the workpiece in. There's the tray here underneath the actual bed. This will just slide out, and this will have a lot of the shavings that fell through the cracks. Down here, the shop vac is actually right underneath here, so you can go ahead and sweep up the inside and also sweep up off the tray, so that makes it easier to clean up. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. It'll get going.